Hi guys, welcome to the second episode of About Homes. Today we have with us Mr. Surya Kakani. Hello sir.
Hi, કેમ છો?
Sir, એક પેલો જ question. સૌથી I think perhaps one of the most important questions I'll start with. Sir, તમારી ઘરે જે કેળા ઉગે છે, એ મને ક્યારે ખાવા મળશે?
Once, twice or thrice a year. So, જ્યારે થશે next time definitely we'll let you know.
Yeah, because one does not expect તમારે in this urban area neighborhood, there's a banana tree inside the house.
No, it does. Now I think things have changed. As long as you just water well and give it enough sunlight, it's possible. It's not a big task, but you want to do it. Then,
yeah, I mean that is.
Yes, but it's possible.
And there's crop that is available.
That's the best part, that it's grown out of your own wastewater and soil.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the best part.
Sir, 100%.
Chokas.
Sir, we'll come back to your home, of course. You've done wonderful things there. But any pela, I want to come to the home that you've designed for me. Do you want to take a guess which one is it out of all of your projects? There's one that I've spent a lot of time there.
Really?
Yes. And it has defined me very significantly.
A home?
It's not a per se a residence, but I've spent ઘરથી જાજો ટાઈમ ત્યાં અમે કાઢ્યો છું.
ક્યાંક ભણ્યા છો? કોઈ સ્કૂલ મેં કરી હશે? સ્કૂલો કર્યા છે?
વાડી સર.
Oh, Rajkot. Oh, that is also one of my favorites.
Yes,
thanks to Kiran. Yes.
Amazing project sir. And તમે there is no question here. I'm just for 2 minutes I'm just going to say why it is such amazing school. પણ સર તમે જ્યારે ચાલુ કરી હતી, it was just a part time school. When I joined, it was a full time from 7 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I've studied there. And it has in lot of ways that earlier I used to study in RKC. So it was built in like 1870s, British at that time, a very boxy design. And then I came to Wadi. It just freed my mind, sir.
Right.
And under the banyan tree,
right.
class there's an amphitheater.
Yes, there's an
there.
amphitheater.
I've studied, sir, Mahabharat, Gujarati literature.
So
any niche classes and it has defined me.
Oh, that's so lovely to know. It's really pleasing. It's really pleasing. Coming from a person who's actually experienced the space every day, I think it's beautiful to know this.
Sir, thank you so much for making it the way it is.
Yeah.
And of course, I had good teachers. I
think I was just going to tell you that a lot of it happens because also of the kind of milieu you are in. The teachers, the people who actually organize the curriculum. And the place does provide a nice background.
Yes, sir. It just lifted.
But I think it's all in all a total game. It cannot be one or the other.
That is
so,
entirely
and
true.
You had a lovely, trustee who runs the system, Kiran Bhai. So I think a lot of credit to the system. I must say that because they have actually. I went there about a few years ago. And I didn't think that they would have managed to keep the thatch in good condition because now it's 20 years ago.
Correct.
After the earthquake. So I thought કે હવે તો આ છાપરું તો બેચારા હાલમાં હાલ છે. પણ ખબર પડી ને ગયો અને જોયું તો ખબર પડી કે they've really taken care of it. Every 4 years they get the team back.
Correct.
And they redo the roof, relay back and forth, turning it around. And it was in perfect condition. That was very pleasing. That was a commitment that I really liked. Very few, because that kind of building does take a certain kind of care.
Correct.
And they've kept it like that.
Yes,
so
very much
that was very, very happy to see that also.
Yes, and sir, campus ma one thing that you have very intelligently done as a student, nano હતો 6th standard ma, મને તો મજા જ પડી છે. You've played with the plinth levels there.
Right.
ઉપર નીચે જાઓ, the art class is there a little higher.
એ છે ને basically it was a flat land. એક basically બોરડીની વાડી હતી બહાર, ગામની બહાર. અને કિરણભાઈએ એવું કીધું કે અમારે અહીંયા જસ્ટ એક સેન્ટર બનાવ્યું છે જ્યાં આગળ મારા છોકરાઓ, એમને બહુ બધા અલગ અલગ સ્કૂલ્સમાં બહુ બધા છોકરાઓ હતા, એમાં 1-2 અઠવાડિયે અહીંયા આવી. They will not do anything with books. They will do literature study. They will do meditation, they'll do sports, they'll do all kinds of art, music, બધું કરશે અહીંયા, બીજું બધું 2 અઠવાડિયે અહીંયા રહીને. અને એવો કેમ્પસ બનાવવો છે. That was his vision actually.
Okay.
So that they get a break from the regular studies and they come here and do other things in life. Basically live with nature. That's how this campus came about. તો હવે એ તો એકદમ flat land, બોરડી, એકદમ hard sun. સો ઓલ વન ડીડ વોઝ કટ એન્ડ ફિલ. સો એક પોર્શને કટ કર્યો અને એક પોર્શનને ફિલ કર્યો, એટલે વચ્ચે એક ફિલ કર્યો અને ઓલ અરાઉન્ડ કાપ્યો. એટલે એનાથી ડિફોલ્ટ આપણને 2 ફૂટ કાપ્યો અને 2 ફૂટ ભર્યો, તો અમે 4 ફૂટનો ફરક આવી ગયો. અને એ જ જમીનમાં. અને પછી એ લોઅર પાર્ટમાં આ બધા હટ્સ, જે લોંગ સી શેપના હટ્સ બધા મુકાયા. અને એ સી શેપના હટ્સમાં બેસિકલી, અને એના લીધે આપણે થેચને, તમે પ્લિન્થ ઉપર ચાલો તો થેચને તમે અડી શકો. અને દરેક ક્લાસરૂમમાં તમારે કોર્ટયાર્ડમાં જવું પડે બિલો ધ પ્લિન્થ. સો આની આખી એક સ્કેલ, ડિફોલ્ટ આપણને એક સ્કેલ મળી ગયું, પ્રાઇવસી મળી ગઈ ક્લાસમાં. તમે જે બી ક્લાસના કોર્ટયાર્ડમાં કરો કે ક્લાસમાં કરો, એ મેઇન પ્લિન્થ જે કોર્ટયાર્ડ છે એ અલગથી કોર્ટયાર્ડ. સો દેર વોઝ અ કાઇન્ડ ઓફ વોટ વુડ વન સે અ વે ઓફ right from the entrance to the classroom there was a sequence of courts. So that was very well got very well articulated. અને ઝાડ એવી રીતના મૂકવામાં આવ્યા કે એ બધા બી જોયા કે કેટલા મોટા થઈ ગયા, all those things. And in this effort also I had a close friend who was an architect in Rajkot then, and also the director of the IPSA school then. And we worked closely together. Because he was also based in Rajkot, Yashin Vibhakar. So in that sense, it was a collaboration of 2 teams. And it worked very well. And I would really, I was really happy to see that they managed to keep the campus the way it is even today. So I'm really happy, and to hear also
no
that
sir, it is.
I'm sitting in front of one of the alumni of that place. This is news to me.
Of the education, of course, and also because of the, and I'm not exaggerating, the campus did have a very surreal effect.
Yes, it is very different from any other school we know of. Mostly. And
it till this day, I tell it to my parents that education, those years in that school have defined me.
So I think I mean, I would say I would have also loved to be in one of those kind of schools, but yes, you were lucky.
Definitely sir.
And I'm
but
glad.
Sir, મારે બીજી એક વસ્તુ એ પૂછવી હતી કે why does an architect play with the plinth level like that? It's also there in Sept, if you see at some places. Why is that ઉપર નીચે? I mean, I really enjoyed it as a kid. It was like a game traveling in
Maybe
the campus.
part of the answer is that કે મજા તો આવે છે, બરાબર. અને કદાચ પર્સ્પેક્ટિવમાં ચેન્જ થતું હોય કે તમારું જે એક હોરિઝોન્ટલ લાઇન છે, એ હોરિઝોન્ટલ લાઇનને તમે આગળ ઉપર નીચે કરી રહ્યા છો, તો નજર ઉપર નીચે પ્લે કરે છે, અને સ્પેસ it is moving in the vertical direction without you moving. Your eye moves in the vertical direction, and then physically anyway you like the change in the your perception of the object has various levels to observe the same object. You're not always observing it at eye level. Sometimes you're going down, sometimes you get a fish eye view, sometimes you get a bird's eye view. It depends on of the object. So in a way you have varied kind of relationships. So in the Wadi school, for example, I can touch the roof. If I'm a small child, I can touch the roof walking on the plinth, and then the same roof I can actually enter in. So it's like an entering the cave. So I have a different experience when I'm entering the cave or the classroom, and I have a different experience when I'm on the plinth outside and the roof is below me, in a sense. So I guess it's
that experience.
It's an experience, and you probably you become more intimate with it in a way, with the object. This is my perception. I guess there can be so many stories, but I mean, it's an interesting question. So I shall now think more about why architects prefer to do this. Or
does it come so naturally? Do you see a piece of drawing and a land, you go there and
it is also a strategy of how, like this was in this case specifically, it is a flat site, and yet one had to create something out of it without doing too much. There is also a case of economics. You don't want to kind of, so how do you do with very simple strategies, how do you get the maximum? So this was, in this particular case, it was basically a thought through thing, consciously, and what it has, obviously what it results in is also always a surprise, and it was worth it. Then the idea of placing the arts and crafts classroom a little higher than the plinth compared to the rest of the classrooms.
Correct.
To give a change in the overall relationships of the objects also, of the classrooms.
Correct.
So I think this is all a certain exercise in, a simple way to put it, composition.
But I loved it. So
yeah, I'm glad too.
Sir, tell me about the roof of the Hearts, because it's the iconic thing in the campus. How did that happen and come about?
This is very interesting. We had done a kindergarten before in Ahmedabad in 95, sometime in the end, mid 95s. And it is a small kindergarten outside city again. Sheelaj, okay, those days it was outside city, 95. And that kindergarten did well, and Kiran Bhai had come by, and then after kindergarten, once the kids got older, they wanted a primary section. So class 1 and 2 or 3, we had to. So we again made some courtyards and small huts. And Kiran Bhai had come from from Rajkot, and he liked he wanted to connect with all this. And then we connected, and that's how it happened. But the real, I would say, the potential of this was only possible because there was a gentleman called Mr. Majumdar from the Northeast who had settled in Ahmedabad, and he had people who could do thatch. So he and himself actually was involved. So he actually, somehow we got in touch. I don't remember even now how. And we got in touch with him and we did the Anand Niketan thing. And he was a fine gentleman, very frail, but very fine, very particular, and a gem of a person. So in that sense, a gem of a person through whom we could actually do these things. So he organized the people. He would organize everything. You just had to give him a contract that mare thatch karvanu chhe. The rest of it he would organize. So obviously none of us are taught how to make thatch at school, right? So in a school of architecture, you're rarely taught these things.
True.
So it's these kind of people who you kind of have to trust and learn. And there is enough in our history and society, in our culture, I would say, there's a lot that is embedded as knowledge. So એમની પાસે હતું knowledge અને એમને માણસો ભેગા કરીને એમને કોન્ટ્રાક્ટ કરીને કર્યું. And then he was accepted. Obviously there was no other choice. Kiran Bhai also employed him. And at what scale? Wadi School is a massive scale. Massive scale. કેટલા 15 કે 20 classroom છે, મોટા. they are like double classrooms. And huge roofs, as you see. And he did a fine job. And that is what I said. After when I went last 3-4 years ago, it was him who was still maintaining those roofs. Kiran Bhai used to call him and his team, and they would come, redo the whole thing. Now look at that commitment of that gentleman and the relationship between the two. That આવીને દર 4 વર્ષે રિપેર કરી નવું કરીને જતા રહે. લાસ્ટ યર એક્સપાયર થઈ ગયા છે. But a very fine man. He was already quite old, and he had a good life, and he was a treasure in his own way. Yes. એમના લીધે થઈ શક્યું ઘણું આ તો. We are, as architects, we strategize to a certain extent.
Correct.
The way we put things together, but without the rest of it falling in place, we can still keep our strategies on paper.
True. But sir, Ama, as you said, finding such people, especially let's say if you are a new architect in a new city like Ahmedabad, finding such people is very difficult. And you have always somehow found these karigars beautiful, like Tamari Rohtak Dome Mache, your timbrel. How do you get hold of these unique? Because it's a craft again, which takes...
I guess, somehow we've always, both Jai and myself, we've always been very curious about how these things come about. We've traveled a lot in the country, abroad, everywhere, and we see that some of the things that we've always liked is some of the timeless things, and we found that people who are actually working with their hands, we've got educated in a certain way, we do things in a certain way, and somehow we probably have got a little distant from actual physically working with our hands.
Correct.
And we found that there was a very wonderful, not only experiential but abilities that one could actually achieve with hands, and that in our country, there was immense potential, and there was already enough skill out there that that we just had to connect with, and it was not. It was to idea was also connecting craft, skill, and what we build with and what we design. If we can somehow involve that, we could actually give it we would sustain the crafts. I like simply saying load bearing, for example. One of the first things we felt is that, and this is something we learned it the very easy way, where 60, 70, 80% in those days, 80%, now maybe 60%, spans or buildings are not more than 4 or 5 meters or not more than 4 floors. So if buildings can be built with load bearing walls, તો કોલમની જરૂર નથી, કોન્ક્રીટની જરૂર નથી, દીવારો ઈંટો ઉપર ઊભી રહી શકે, એટલે બિલ્ડિંગ થઈ શકે.
Correct.
So, and in that process we realized that when we started building the first building, when we built load bearing, we realized that load bearing ધીરે ધીરે અમારે સમજાવવું પડ્યું કે joint overlap ના થવો જોઈએ.
Correct.
Which actually was a little surprising because we thought that was natural. But then we realized, because everybody was putting columns.
Yeah.
Even in a 10 by 10 room, you had 4 corner columns, and people just infilling the wall as a skin.
Yeah.
So because of that, we realized that a skin came thai. So because a column. So if you remove the column, the wall has to stand, which means that the wall has to be built a certain way. So it's small things like this. And we realized that once you tell them, once the masons, they come back to it. Because it's that the contractors have given them a contract of per square foot, so they are trying to finish maximum amount of wall in the shortest of time. And because actually wall ne upar load nato tyare, then you have to tell them, listen, it's okay, you should pay them accordingly, but we'll remove the columns, we'll actually, and the client, overall costings doesn't matter. It works out. You're going to save on the columns.
True.
And you get load bearing walls, and so you kind of in a way resurrected back the load bearing system in a slow manner. And so now we do find a lot of load bearing walls happening. This building that you're sitting in right now is a 4-floored load bearing.
Correct.
Chuna mache pachu. It is in lime.
Yes.
It doesn't have columns. We actually wanted to avoid concrete totally, but then some sanity was put in our minds that you're sitting in an urban area and you may need to follow certain codes, and so we didn't want to put any slabs, concrete slabs. But then by the time we finished our research, જ્યાર સુધી રોહતક અને ટિમ્બ્રેલ અમારા ખ્યાલમાં અને વધારે અમારું કામ થયું ત્યાર સુધીમાં થઈ ગયું હતું. So we are basically sitting in a lime building with masonry building, lime masonry. And the most interesting part is again the kind of the story of the brick, which also is, we'll probably come to that.
Yes, we will. So, basically, sir, when you build such buildings, Tamaraji contractors and masons, was it like a process of training them? Do you have the same people working in different projects?
Mostly, but not necessarily.
Okay.
Initially, when we had to, as I said, the contractors, especially in lime, one had to train them. But there were people who came from certain places and who kind of helped us around. And in that process, we were able to connect and build. There's Keyur. I'm sure you may have heard of Keyur,
yes.
Kesarjan.
Yes.
So we had been working with Kesarjan since 95, 96 when we did the first buildings in CN Vidyalaya. He was doing the fly ash bricks. Nobody was making fly ash bricks then. It basically industrial waste માંથી કોઈ ઈંટો બને.
Correct.
તો પહેલી જ ઈંટો એમની વાપરી અમે.
Okay.
અને એમની સાથે ત્યારથી કામ ચાલે છે. And he had some knowledge also in how to use lime as mortar, and so we connected, and we were able to use how he finally managed to make lime. One of the fundamental challenges for us was to know why lime lost the modern market.
Correct.
So for us it was more a question to understand why is it lime is not available the way cement is available.
Correct.
And why is it not considered a modern material. It has all the other technical advantages, whether it is thermal, whether it is time in terms of how it becomes stronger over time. So except that the modern world is about time.
Correct.
Also speed. Yes. And there are also certain it's like this, a bag of cement is cheaper than a bag of lime, even though cement is made from lime after burning lime at some crazy temperatures. So તમને લાઈમ હજુ મોંઘું પડે છે. તો એ એક પ્રશ્ન બહુ મોટો એક વિચાર આવ્યો અને પછી એને ખબર હતી કે આમાં સારી વસ્તુ છે તો કેવી રીતના, અને તો એ સમજમાં બહુ બધા લોકો ભેગા થયા આમાં. A lot of people, you know, like we have a very close colleague in the office, Raj. Then another architecture firm, Indigo, you must know of.
Yes.
Uday bhai and Mashmi. એ લોકોને બી ઇન્ટરેસ્ટ હતો. સો આ બધા અમે બધા ભેગા થઈને થોડુંક કરતા ગયા, અને I think we learned a lot in the process. So yeah, that was, I mean, it's a big, actually the lime itself is a big story, so I don't want to go on that.
No problem, sir. We'll come back to that, I think, again. But I still want to talk a little bit more about Wadi. Ek bhai hજી પ્રશ્ન છે. About Wadi school.
Wadi, please.
Sir, હવે એમાં one byproduct of Wadi is that I have now come to love amphitheaters. Like you, I નીચે સ્ટુડિયોમાં તમારે નીચે છે, અને if you remember, I wanted to shoot there. હું પહેલી વાર આવ્યો ત્યારે I just felt at home, કારણ કે I've spent most of my time there also, એટલે I couldn't understand why, અને પછી I came to know that you did the Wadi school, and then I realized કે okay એ છે. But similar to your love to your amphitheater, Mr. Palasma, which you've quoted many a times, he said that architecture is not really in books, architectural books. It is in good literature, music and art. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, who would refute Palasma, right? How can you even refute? I think there are some more important things that he says which I've very I really love what he says. He has understood the fallacy of our modern times and in a scientific manner, and he puts it in a phenomenological process. Though what he says is the eye has overtaken other experiences, whether it's touch, whether it is smell, whether it is the experience of place and body experience. And I think that has convoluted our notions of what balance and proportions experiences. So and he says it very beautiful. I mean, in his literature, the way he writes, it's very moving. So there's no doubt of what he's trying to elicit through his work.
But so then where do you go for inspiration? Like when you find yourself like you need new ideas, or maybe you're stuck somewhere, do you go to arts or maybe music, or is it something else?
No, I talk to Jai.
Oh, how lovely. That is amazing. Wow. What sort of conversations? Like day-to-day life, you guys?
We are always talking about either art, culture, society, things around us, nature, a lot of nature, light. So there's no curated discussion here, okay? And there are obviously sometimes arguments also, but then the point is to get further through this.
Correct.
And so in that sense we share a lot of common interests, and so we have survived each other, so we are fine.
That is the best part. અહીંયા કંઈ હવે કંટાળો આવે છે ઘરે જાય. We'll find new ideas. But sir, then does travel have a big effect?
Oh yes, I think both of us love to travel, and we've traveled all over, and so there is no better teacher than, and that I tell a lot of our students also, કે the city is the best lab. આર્કિટેક્ચર માટે તમે બીજે ક્યાં જવાની જરૂર નથી, કોઈ ક્લાસમાં જવાની જરૂર નથી, beyond a point. If you keep your eyes and ears open and you walk around the school with the city, there are things you like, there are things you don't like.
Correct.
Just think why you like something and why you don't like something.
True.
And start thinking about it, start talking about it to your, to whoever is next to you, and say, okay, I like this, and why I don't like this, and the person may say, oh, listen, I like it, but so that's a discussion.
Correct.
And then there is something that happens in that discussion that you realize, and it's a immense lab.
True.
કેટલું બધું છે. And to us that has been the biggest teacher.
Nice.
કે lab શહેર લેબ છે અને એ જોઈને we can decide, okay, why a certain building looks right, in terms of its proportion. Is it because of its setting? Is it because I'm right below it and I'm seeing it in a certain way? Or is it because I'm able to see it from a distance? Or is it because of what is around it?
કરેક્ટ
એ એનાલિસિસ તો પોતે જ કરી શકાય.
ટ્રુ.
અને બીજા એવા આજુબાજુ લોકો હોય જે ઇક્વલી એવા કીડાવાળા હોય તો એ ડિસ્કશન અલગ લેવલ પહોંચી જાય.
ડેફિનેટલી.
તો I find that it's to me that has been very very useful, that to be always thinking about where you are.
Correct. You, I think, recently went to Japan also.
That was, yeah.
How did you, like, was there any new learning there? Because different buildings.
I've been there long back before. This time we were together, so obviously. Though I must say the difference was, I went way back in 93 sometime, 92.
Wow.
And that time it was all about endo. So, and looking around things and
Correct.
all the. This time, not one. So that's the difference, I guess. One is seeing in oneself.
Wow.
That was, and that time when you saw that time, after a point you begin to realize, hey, listen, one knows where that person has come from. And now when you go, you want to know where was that person came from. What was that route?
Wow.
And so this time we were really into places that are totally off the map, and things that, buildings that are really trying to mostly do with culture and people.
They also have like beautiful craftsmen there.
Yeah, so it was about their culture and their places in that sense, their life, their everyday life. Okay, and one realized that a lot of what we see as who they are comes from who they are now, comes from who they were or who they have been. And how they live their life. And so those are, it's your own cake. I don't know how it informs our work, but it's one cannot directly correlate these and make a map. But somewhere it's like a Brownian motion કહેવાય ને, ફિઝિક્સમાં એક Brownian motion કરીને એવું છે. કંઈક વસ્તુ ક્યાંક વાગે અને કંઈક બીજે ક્યાંક એફેક્ટ થાય.
Connect. Definitely. પણ સર એમાં, so I have got, this is a hypothetical question. Let's say I am a new practitioner. I've just started my work, and like you, I just have visited Japan, and to me still the world is about Tadawando and his buildings, and I've fallen in love with that style and using a lot of concrete. And for my new project, which might be a residence, I'm planning to make a design which is similar to his and use as much as concrete as possible. Would you think like this is the right way of approaching a design, or this is maybe...
It depends on the place, depends on the context, depends on your...
There's no context apart from that. I like this style, I want to replicate it.
It's your right. You have every right to do what you feel is right for yourself.
Okay.
As long as you're not asking me to do it.
That makes sense. Yeah. Got it, sir. And I think so. Those are, I think, my Wadi questions are all. But so the next project that I think I have fallen in love is your home. Of course, I've not seen it apart from the photographs.
Okay, most welcome someday.
Definitely, sir. મારે જોવા તો આવું જ છે. પણ એમાં, sir, one thing that I wanted to ask is that you've said many a times that initially તમારે 259, if I'm not wrong, you wanted to completely rebuild it initially, but you couldn't find the time, and then you realized that you can build on top, change things.
Right.
And in contrast, you were also the dean of CEPT at one point. You were running this practice. Jai ma'am has his NGO. So, sir, where do you find the family time here? For yourself or maybe your personal projects? તમને મળે છે?
આજે family time.
But in that, like when you were doing all of those things together at that time,
but you finally get home to eat food, no?
that is enough.
And that's good enough, no? You are there from evening 8 o'clock to the next morning 10 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
Together.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's a luxury.
Because one might assume that atlu badhu kaira pachi is like completely nothing. I just want to sit now.
Nah.
No?
I think it never has crossed my mind yet. Yet. But I think I think our minds are very busy both. She has her own journey and I have my own journey. We both started together, and I think in many ways we are still together, but in a way that she has other quests. Everyone is an individual.
Correct.
She has her own quests and I have mine, and that is still going on, and as long as questions remain, life remains.
True. But do you think, since it has never crossed your mind, I'm not sure, but to do things that you've done, multiple things and other projects, did you somewhere sacrifice your own personal time somehow? કે તમારી જેવી કોઈને પ્રેક્ટિસ કરવી હોય તો is some sort of sacrifice required? No?
I never thought like that. I was enjoying it.
Oh, wow. So then
I think both of us were. So I don't know. I think those stories which one hears about. એ છે ને ફિક્ટિવ છે મારા હિસાબે તો.
અચ્છા, ઓકે.
તમને મજા આવે તો કરો, ના મજા આવે તો પછી ના કરો ને. જે આ મજા આવે એ કરો. I mean, it's very simple.
Correct.
I've been enjoying, and we've been lucky that we've been able to connect with colleagues, friends, partners, કારીગર્સ હોય કે એટલે with the ecosystem.
Correct.
કે we were able to happily float along and produce things that are hopefully worthwhile, and at least the experiences of producing them have been worthwhile.
Yeah.
So and there is joy when one looks at it again and again.
That is amazing.
That's happy.
Wow, sir.
Yeah. So
one other thing, sir, about the residence, which I found very fascinating, that you've taken out all the air conditioners. You primarily rely on...
the house is another story.
It is.
It was an old house of housing board. 99 we bought into it, and at that time it is in not such great condition. One could live in it. So initially we thought maybe after some time 1-2 વર્ષમાં આપણે એને વિચારીને નવું કરી દઈશું બધું જમીનથી. હાઉસિંગ બોર્ડનું હતું એટલે બધા એમ કહેતા હતા ને એમ દિવારોમાં સીપેજ ને બધું હતું ને ફ્લોરિંગમાંથી હતું, પણ કામમાં બિઝી હતા એટલે કામ છે એટલે કામમાં મજા આવતી હતી તો એક ગાડી ચાલુ રહી અને ઘરમાં રહેવું પડ્યું. ઘરમાં રહેતા પછી 9 વર્ષ નીકળી ગયા. 9 વર્ષ નીકળી ગયા. 2008 or 9 we decided કે હવે તો કરી દઈએ કેમ કે હવે ટાઈમ થયો. તો હવે પછી વિચાર્યું કે હવે આટલા વર્ષ રહ્યા છે ને આમ ઠીક છે, જે 5-7 આ પ્રોબ્લેમ છે એ કોઈક રીતના સોલ્વ કરી લઈએ. બાય દેન વી હેડ ઓલ્સો ડેવલપ્ડ અ લાર્જર થિંગ અબાઉટ અ વે ઓફ લાઈફ ઓવર ટાઈમ. કે જે વસ્તુ વી વર ઓલવેઝ એવરીબડી ઇઝ ટોકિંગ અબાઉટ કાર્બન, એવરીબડી ઇઝ ટોકિંગ અબાઉટ યુઝિંગ લેસ મટીરિયલ એન્ડ ડુઈંગ મોર, વેસ્ટ ના કરવું, એ બધી વસ્તુઓનું આખું એક પ્રભાવ વધતો ગયો. અને one realized the value of it as one worked more and more into it. I mean, practice always continued to do that, but then when it came to our own lives, we said, shouldn't we be practicing it? So એમાંથી પછી એક ઘરને ના કરીને પછી એને જ રીઓર્ગનાઇઝ કરી દીધું. એ જ દિવારોમાં આગળ પાછળ કરીને ઉપર સેમ રાખીને જેટલું બેસિક ઇન્ટરવેન્શન અમારી જરૂરિયાતો હતી એવું બી નહોતું કરવું કે વી ડોન્ટ વોન્ટ ટુ ગો બેક ટુ અ લાઈફ વિચ ઇઝ difficult, but at the same time we can lead a contemporary life comfortable. Correct. So in that house we used to have 3 air conditioners, and then we said let's try, and we had just done a factory where we had done passive evaporative cooling system.
Correct.
And Chamanlal ji had guided us. Dr. Chamanlal Gupta was pioneer, a building physics na pioneer હતા, અને એમને ગાઈડ કરેલું તો એમને થોડીક સૂઝબૂઝ આપેલી. તો એ સૂઝબૂઝથી ઘરમાં ટ્રાય કર્યો કે એક વચ્ચે એક ડક બનાવીને છતમાંથી કાઢ્યું ઉપર, અને એમાં એક વચ્ચે વી થોટ વિલ પુટ અ મિસ્ટર એન્ડ વિલ જસ્ટ પુટ સમ ફેન. કરેક્ટ. અને એ બધા રૂમમાં કનેક્ટ કર્યું અને છત ઉપર માટી નાખી દીધી એક બાજુ બીજી જાતનું, એટલે થિકનેસ ઓફ ધ રૂફ ઇન્ક્રીઝ કરી, એટલે બિલ્ડિંગને જાડું કરી નાખ્યું અને એક વેલ વેન્ટિલેટ કરી નાખ્યું ઇન સિમ્પલ વેઝ. અને નીચે નીચે નાના પોન્ડ મૂકી દીધા, એટલે પગ પાણીમાં હોય તો ઠંડુ હોય ને મગજ, તો એવું તો બિલ્ડિંગ બી ઠંડુ થઈ જાય એમ. તો એવી રીતના 2 નાના પોન્ડ કરી દીધા અને ઉપર આવો ડક્ટ મૂક્યો અને લુવર્સ ને બધું મૂકીને એક બાજુથી એ ડક્ટમાં પંખો, અને સો વેલ વેન્ટિલેટેડ હાઉસ. એન્ડ વી રિમૂવ ધ એસીસ. તો પહેલાં લાગ્યું કે 1-2 વર્ષ જાય ઇન્સિસ્ટેડ કે ના કાઢી જ નાખો, રાખશું તો વપરાશમાં ક્યારેક ઓન થયું એટલે પછી બંધ નથી થતું. તો આપણે ટ્રાય કરીએ કે છે જ નહીં, પછી 2 વર્ષ પછી જોઈએ તો ત્યારે મૂકશું. મેં કીધું મૂકી રાખીએ અને બંધ રાખશું. ઇન્સિસ્ટેડ નો વી રિમૂવ ઇટ, સો વી રિમૂવડ ઇટ અને કાઢી નાખ્યા. અને 2 વર્ષ થયા, 3 વર્ષ થયા, પછી લાગે એકચ્યુઅલી એટલું કોઈ વાંધો નથી કે એવી મુશ્કેલી નથી થતી. એક્સેપ્ટ ડ્યુરિંગ ધ પીક હ્યુમિડ ટાઈમ્સ થોડુંક પરસીવો વધે, એ 15 દિવસ હોય આગળ પાછળ, એ નીકળી જાય એટલે પછી તો કોઈ જરૂર જ નથી પડતી. તો દેન વી હેવ સર્વાઇવ્ડ વિથઆઉટ ઇટ ટિલ નાઉ, and so we don't have air conditioners.
That is amazing.
And we had also, I must say that we removed all the old plaster, made it lime plaster, washable lime plaster. So એ બધી નાની નાની વસ્તુઓ કરી કે we wanted to make it a VOC free house, which is volatile organic compounds, એટલે કોઈ પેઇન્ટ્સ નથી, પોલિશિસ નથી, ચૂના ને એ બધું છે. અને ઓછામાં ઓછું એને પાણી બધું રિસાયકલ કરવાની બધી વાર્તા. અને આ હવે 15 વર્ષ 12 વર્ષ 13 વર્ષ થઈ ગયા છે. We still 14 વર્ષ થયા nearly. હવે we still drink rainwater from that day to now. વરસાદી પાણી. So એટલે all those things are very possible. થોડુંક એફર્ટ કરવું પડે. We have terrace vegetable garden. There are some years we are little more careful and do a good job. Some years we are very busy and we forget about it.
Correct.
But it has helped in insulating the roof. So that has been a huge help. મને યાદ છે એ ઘરમાં હું જતો ત્યારે પંખો ચાલુ કરતા રાતના ઉપર જઈને પછી સુવા તો ગરમ પવન આવતું, કેમ કે સ્લેબ ગરમ તપી ગયું હોય. મેં પાણી નાખ્યું છે સ્લેબ ઉપર જઈને કે ઠંડુ થઈ જાય તો સુવાય, કેમ કે એસી ચાલુ કરીએ તો એ 2 કલાક લાગે. તો વી રિયલાઇઝ that the AC is actually using to cool the building. પછી આપણને ઠંડુ કરે છે. તો બિલ્ડિંગને ગરમ ના થવા દઈએ તો પ્રોબ્લેમ કદાચ સોલ્વ થઈ જાય. અને એવું જ થયું. વી બેસિકલી ઇન્સ્યુલેટેડ ધ રૂફ. And the walls were thick anyways. Lime did a big job. So all of those things, along with a lot of creepers, fragrant creepers and stuff that were planted over time, we have a lovely time in that place. So amazing. We are happy. So yeah.
Emma sir, I remember you've also mentioned here and there that March, April 15 days are a little difficult to
that is no, not March, April. It's actually that time peak heat best
what?
Humidity. જ્યારે humidity હોય જ્યારે એટલે end May June depending, ક્યારે humidity જૂનમાં હોય, ક્યારે જુલાઈમાં બી આવે. પણ એ જે હ્યુમિડિટીના 10 12 15 દિવસ હોય ત્યારે પરસીવો વધે. તો એ પરસીવો વધે એટલે તમારે you need more breeze on your body.
Correct.
So and I sweat a bit more. So you sleep and you can, you may get a little sweaty on one side and then you turn around. So the only solution to that was putting one table fan next to you, an extra one. So those 15 days I just have to do that, and it has taken care of that problem.
Baki, so apart from that,
those peak summer is the best time. Peak summer is the best time.
હવે તો આવું જ પડશે.
May માં આવજો. Absolutely.
I definitely want to say.
Yeah. No. Most welcome. And that when I simply putting margins to use as courtyards, like ground floor is basically more like an open space.
Correct.
And the private spaces are upstairs. So yeah.
Sir, I don't know what the space is, but my photo જોયો હતો where it is તમારા ઘરમાં it is an Indian sitting and there is a window, it comes to the waist height and then the entire wall is empty. અને એક ઉપર પછી નાનકડી 20 by 20 or 30 by 30 સેન્ટીમીટરની નાનકડી બારી છે. અને that I think it runs throughout the house એવી રીતના, small windows somewhere which you wouldn't expect, and it's not like centered aligned, it is on the left. So I wanted to ask, sir, is it a play on the light or is it just graphics that you've put it there?
No, it's basically it's framing views, simply speaking, changing your viewpoints. So you're looking at one window and then you see another opening, another. So it's kind of layering your views. So that when you put these kind of openings here and there, your attention is taken away and something gets framed differently. Sometimes something in every season the framing is different because the tree outside or the plant outside changes.
Exactly.
So yeah, these are games architects play.
So more to do with less light, but more of like framing it.
Yeah, more to do with layering the views and framing, and the quality of light that comes through a smaller opening is also
it
at
is
times powerful and different.
Definitely.
So જે રીતના જાલીમાંથી જે હમણાં તમને એક જાલી એક અલગ આવે અને આપણે ત્યાં છે ને ગ્લેર બહુ છે એટલે રોશનીમાં શાર્પનેસ બહુ છે બહારને લાઇટ. તો you want light but you don't want the glare. So how do you break that? So traditionally jali, so what this bamboo is doing is the same thing. So it's these kind of things, these are all tools of the trade ke bhai.
No, but it jodar sir lage. Sir, one other thing is that ke tame, so you made your residence and you've kept in mind the embodied energy that you talk about. How many of your clients, when you've made their residence, for example the Kunur residence, they have opted in, or you were able to convince them and show them that this is a better way of building?
Kunur residence was a very different challenge. Because we are all used to, we think that આપણે ગરમી બહુ છે એટલે જાડી દીવારો કરશું તો ઠંડુ રહેશે.
કરેક્ટ.
તો હવે આ ઠંડો પ્રદેશ અને અમને થયું કદાચ અહીંયા તો હવે શું કરવાનું. Then we realized that actually the same logic works there also. Because અંદરની ગરમી બહાર નથી જવા દેવી.
કરેક્ટ.
તમારે બહાર ઠંડુ છે પણ અંદર તો ગરમી થઈ ગઈ છે તો એ ગરમીને તમારે બહાર નથી જવા દેવું.
Correct.
So that means the same logic can work both ways. So there also we have these thick walls on the two sides, and we've got very less glass opening, and that glass opening actually we've kind of set the house in a way that goes along the slope of the contour of the estate. And manages to get the view of the slope down, and also the opening on the south side. It's a large skylight on the south, which gets the maximum light into the spaces, and you can see the sky. So on one side you can see the ground, and if you on the north side and on the lower side down to the valley, and on the other side to the south you look up into the mountain. And you can see the sky. So it was one of those kind of sections where you wanted to kind of strategize the hill. It had its own calling because of the condition of the site.
Correct. So tea gardens were also
it was basically a sloping site, as tea gardens are mostly. And it was a little steep, so we just took advantage of that. So it's one singular roof. The idea, most of our buildings, we also try to look at the idea that we don't want to have too many slopes, or I mean, one of the things we found is that maintenance બહુ problem હોય આવી જગ્યાઓમાં. So જેટલા તમે joints આપશો એટલા એમાં leakages or whatever else, because પત્તા કે આ તે પડીને જે બધા maintain કરવું પડે. So the idea is to be able to do things that allow them to be able to, so the slopes were done in a way that things would just simply wash off. And it's kind of a very simple, the way it sits on its terrain.
Correct.
It's a simple section of, and the house goes upwards. So as you go, the bedrooms are on the upper floor because you're walking up the slope.
Correct.
So the lower level is your living, and the upper level default becomes the private spaces.
Got it.
And it's a kind of a small long house.
But sir, Emma, did you use the same lime plasters and the water tanks?
No. There is a rainwater harvesting, and all those things were done.
Okay.
No, we could not do lime plaster in those places. It is regular cement plaster. So it is not that I must also what is it? Put a line of that we are not against any particular material. Okay.
Got it.
What is right, where it is right, has to be used.
Got it.
You have to be just conscious of its carbon footprint. બીજું ઓપ્શન હોય તો એને કોશિશ કરવાનું. એ ના હોય તો પછી જરૂર નથી કે ના કરાય. Every material has its advantages. So if you were to ask me to build a 2-floor building and say that let's make columns, and I will first definitely make all my efforts to convince you that you can save money and it will actually be not worth it. And I think I've been touch wood, luckily most people see the sense. Correct. And they opt for that. And I think to some extent there is an awareness. There is now an awareness.
Correct.
In certain kinds of buildings you can still do it. Obviously you can't say કે 10 માળના બિલ્ડિંગમાં હું આવું બધું કરવા જઈશ એટલે ક્યાં પહોંચીશ. તો એ કદાચ જુદું લોજિક હોય અને એના માટે અલગ વસ્તુ વિચારવી પડે કે એમાં સ્ટ્રક્ચર બહુ ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ પ્લે કરે. એટલે તમે એવા અખતરા ના કરો કે સ્ટ્રક્ચર એન્જિનિયરે તમારા અખતરાને સેટિસ્ફાય કરવા માટે નાટક અને સ્ટીલ વધારવા પડે. સો our job as architects is also to try and see how you make these buildings such that the structural engineers are not stressed out in trying to fulfill your crazy demands.
Correct.
So I think that's where we have to balance out.
Makes sense. But sir, let's say when you're trying to convince a client to build in a certain way and use less resources, is the argument always in the terms કે તમને સસ્તું પડશે એટલે આ તમે કરો, or maybe sometimes it's also like કે this is expensive, I can see that, but we have to look at the environment also. How does one go about pitching the idea?
I've never really thought of it either or.
Acha.
I've put it both ways.
Okay.
कि आ भी छे ने आ भी छे. And it's funny, but when you say that, listen, you see, most people who come architects, I mean, at least to the kind of offices that they are decently endowed, and you put to them the logic that there are these possibilities, and karwathi, there is craft, there is skill, there are people, there is social equity, there is the idea that and ena tamne bhi benefit malvanu che. We are also going to be able to do all of these things, and there is an awareness now post climate change na je badi vartao chale che. So I am seeing at least a 40 to 50% change in acceptance badi gyu che, bahut badi gyu che.
Okay.
There is a lot of acceptance in that, especially wherever structurally and wherever the particular scale of the building allows that. In certain large scale systems, the challenges are different. So in different scales the challenges are different. As I said, you have to just keep in mind that we are also working with the government at times.
Yeah, correct.
So there are different challenges there, and we've had a very different way of looking at that challenge. There we are not going to be talking to them because they are going to go through their L1, their contracting systems, their processes. You're not going to be able to tell them about talk to them about social equity, craft, and all that. So beyond the point. But there are other ways. So what are those things? So we struggle and find, and we try to strategize a logic that works for the good of the building or the project in the longer sense.
Correct.
So there are various ways. So it's not about material, it is not about a particular thing. So one has to remain flexible.
Got it.
End of the day, the larger objective is important. Flexibility is the key to that, to be able to think through, because end of the day it's somebody's hard-earned money. And we are at one point, I don't want to call it that, service providers to some extent, but at our calling, in a way that we can show better light to that kind of a project.
Correct. But sir, એમાં problem એવો થાય, where does one draw the line in your calling? Say, let's say you have a practice and you have a certain kind of calling, and now the client that has walked in is a very different client, and you truly and very passionately want to do it in a certain way, and you also, because this is also a business, you've got people, you've got
you have to pay your bills. Yes.
So where do you not take that project, or where do you draw the line? These are my ideals. Some I don't cross, or maybe I cross this ones.
No, the project has to be full of joy. We have to enjoy it. We have to enjoy it together with the client. We have to enjoy the client. The client has to enjoy being with us. Because 2-4 વર્ષ થાય આ બધી વસ્તુઓમાં, ઘણીવાર વધારે બી થાય.
Correct.
તો if it is fulfilling, we go whole the hog, and we figure out their constraints, their insecurities, our insecurities. We tell them, and if we meet on some kind of common ground, some points, we don't have to meet all the points, we go ahead, and otherwise we get a sense both ways, and it's probably in the health of both the parties that to not indulge with each other beyond a point.
True.
Because why live in stress for the next 4 years?
Yeah.
So that we have been lucky in Touchwood. We've been little particular, but we've kind of been, I would say, blessed.
Oh, great, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I have 3 more questions to go.
Okay.
Just ખાલી છેલ્લા 3 પછી તમને જવા દઈશ. One question is, sir, is education. Does, sir, if somebody wants to become an architect, is a formal architectural education necessary? Because if you see, the famous architects of history, let's say Tadawando or Frank Lloyd Wright, Corbusier, no formal education of architecture. So, jaruri hai to a degree for architecture to pursue it?
No.
No? Why not?
So, you can.
अच्छा,
you don't have to worry that मैं हूँ आर्किटेक्चर ना भण्यो એટલે મારે હવે ઇન્ટરવ્યુઝ કરતા રહેવું પડશે નહીં હું બી બાંધી શકીશ.
Oh wow, sir.
Yeah, I see, it helps. It definitely helps to open up certain vistas and certain processes, certain worldviews. Good places definitely do that, good peers do that.
Okay.
But at the same time, if there was somebody who, if you had like the kind of interests, for example, you have, and you travel the world and you start questioning things, why is something like this and why is something like that, and why does that building look like this, why do I, and if you are pretty good and beginning to analyze and talk to people, and over a period of time that and you work, see, the skill of drafting or learning to draw and visualize is a skill that can be picked up. What the challenge is to have a certain core set of values.
Got it.
And a certain core set of values comes A, from where you come from, the culture that you come from, B, the peers that you move around with, and finally pushing yourself to develop other areas which you find value in.
Got it.
And I think it's all possible. It may be a little what should I say, a little overbearing if you think about it, but
Correct.
I think it's very much possible. In fact, I've thought about it.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think I've thought about it that there were great architects before.
Correct.
I mean, with ક્યાંકથી તો આવડત આવ્યું ને, એટલે they had.
Correct.
So it just makes us a little more efficient because it's condensed into a certain, so there is a whole discourse on the whole idea of paradigm of the pedagogy of education in terms of university as a system.
Correct,
and
correct.
how it, એ આખી એક મોટી વાર્તા છે, એટલે એ તમારો પ્રશ્ન actually
but I got my answer.
Yes. Good.
Sir, મારે તો અહીંયા આવીને કામ કરવું હોય તો would you hire me?
Absolutely. મહેનત કરવી પડશે બસ. Absolutely. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
sir, perfect.
Yes.
Sir, એક બીજો પ્રશ્ન આવ્યો છે. It is, I think, because I think you are the right person to answer, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask it. If you don't want to answer, it's also okay. So, જ્યારે initially we start working, it has been my finding that when I started, I had a lot of ego. Like, કોઈની ના સાંભળવી ન ગમે. And you're also not patient. And with time, some personality traits you alter in yourself, and then you can proceed in a correct manner. So after all these years, you're still practicing at Labada projects. Do you still find anything that you need to work on or maybe change to work more efficiently or design in a certain way? એવું કાંઈ?
કદાચ Jai will be better to answer.
કારણ કે what I'm curious is, does this journey ever end where you are like, okay?
I don't know. It's a I think it's open questions, है.
It is.
કે I don't think we know ourselves so well, no?
We don't, of course.
It's always the other who knows you better than yourself beyond a point, no?
Correct.
And it is better to be open to that. But that takes time. To be able to be open to that. To
realize that somewhere you are you could do better in certain aspects.
So that you're always being told, na? Right from when you are growing up, right from your teachers or your parents or your wherever, every time you've been told. And there is a point at which you say, listen, enough. But those years were when we are, teenagers, and then after that, there's a whole area of cognitive science there, which has, very clearly analyzed that various ages of growth and mind space that we all go through. But that question of yours is an open question in that sense. I don't think there is an answer for that. Or rather, I don't even know if I have. It could be all both ways, So, obviously, we all need to. There is never an end, no?
Correct.
Then you're a vegetable.
True.
Yeah. I mean, no, this thing, disrespect to all the beautiful vegetables, but.
No, yeah, you do. I understand. Yeah. I understand, definitely, sir. Now, sir, we'll come to 25B, the studio we're sitting in. Ama sir, what I think is you've talked about a lot of different materials, but one material ji tame badi jagah approach and you've not talked about as much is wood. Mane એવું લાગે છે. I want to ask specific questions on this in the studio wood you've used and a larger question of wood.
Again, as I said, something to do with carbon has been driving this thing, but at the same time, where do you get wood now? So from the house, much before that, we had begun to start sourcing wood from old suppliers. There was enough of old wood around in these parts. કેમકે જૂના બધા જે આ દેશમાં તો જંગલ જ હતા અને બધા જૂના ઘરોમાં લાકડા બહુ હતા અને બીમ્સ ને બધા. સો જૂનું લાકડું ઘણું બધું મળતું. You had to be tolerant. The other thing we've learnt is that these processes also teach you to be tolerant towards certain kinds of finishes, certain kinds of look and certain kinds of, તમારે જૂના લાકડા લો તો એમાં ખીલીઓ હશે, એમાં એના દાગ હશે, એમાં ક્યાંક એને ગાંઠો હશે એવી જગ્યા પર જે તો નવું લાકડું લેવા જાઓ તો તમને એકદમ સટાસટ તમે કહી શકો કે આ નથી જોઈતું ને આ જોઈએ. જૂના લાકડામાં જે છે એ છે. And I found a value in that actually. Both of us felt that, wow, it's like our own bodies, no? Scars to હોય જ તો એ લાકડામાં it is also telling a story of its life. And we found and some beautiful grains that we have been able to find in the old wood we don't find in the fresh wood. So we have always then over a period of time we discovered there are certain woods that are not used in furniture.
Correct.
And we discovered that mango બહુ વપરાતું નથી, નીમ નથી વપરાતું, સાદડ, which is the whole office there is full of that.
Yes.
The reason was very simple because sadad is a very hard, all hardwoods.
Yes.
Carpenters માટે મુશ્કેલી થાય. હવે carpenters ને આપણે ભાવ આપીએ તો એ પ્રમાણે ભાવ આપતો હોઈએ તો એ તો પહેલા તો obviously they are also seeing how much can they manage to work in a certain kind of wood, how much work can they actually output.
Yes.
So you have to accordingly organize your your whole things that you take care of the carpenters, the people who work with you, the skilled craftsmen, and we have found that the amount of skill that our mestris have.
Oh, it is a well. Correct.
We are, not only in working with wood, the way they understand mechanics. I don't think a mechanical engineer can solve some of the problems that these guys have solved. Simple things like મારા જે ડક્ટ કર્યું મેં ઘરે તો એ ડક્ટમાં લૂવર્સ હતા.
કરેક્ટ.
એન્ડ obviously it's at a height. હવે એ લૂવરને મારે નીચેથી ઓપન બંધ કરવું છે. And so I didn't want any mechanized, there was mechanized options, and I just wanted a simple hinge which I could just push up and down and it would open. So we sat down and he actually this is a carpenter, okay? એક જસુભાઈ કરીને છે જે અમે 30 વર્ષથી કામ કરીએ સાથે, અને એ ભાઈએ simple, he looked at the whole thing and he looked at the direction of the movements and figured out એક normal પતરાના એમાંથી bend કરી આમ we manufactured one. And once we found it worked, made it a little better, and then actually got, I think probably 30 or 40 of them made, so that the louvers could. So what I'm saying is, it's not just carpentry. One is carpentry.
Essentially made a hardware for the...
Exactly. Yeah. So this understanding of the mechanics is also an important aspect, which I think is very crucial. And I think, so coming back to wood, this wood, that is, these hardwoods are very inexpensive.
Okay.
So you just have to pay that, whatever you saved there, you pay to the masons.
Correct.
And to the mestris.
And
the carpenters, the skilled craftsmen can actually make wonderful stuff out of it. So આ બધા જે આપણે જે એમાં પૈસા બચાવીએ એ આમાં આપી દઈએ તો કામ તો સર્વર નિર્ભર તો આપણું કામ થઈ જાય છે. And I find that the really for me, so it's a personal choice, okay? Both of us have felt that the woods, these hardwoods, the grain changes very frequently, and the tone changes very frequently.
There's no consistency.
And there is no consistency.
True.
We love inconsistent stuff.
Sir, wow, thank you for saying that.
we really love inconsistent stuff. I mean, if you look around it, you'll find that suddenly dark થઈ જાય, suddenly એકદમ knots દેખાય છે, and suddenly grains બહુ powerful થઈ જાય, અને બહુ ક્યાંક એકદમ શાંત થઈ જાય. Now, I mean, to me it is like the wave, in the ocean. So it's beautiful. So to us, these grains are a bit evocative, very evocative.
Wow.
So and I you asked me about wood, but I also want to say that the bricks that Keyur Bhai has produced for us, and we've been making things with him, actually add another dimension. Because આ પહેલી વાર અમે એકચ્યુઅલી પહેલી વાર એમનો ઈંટ એમને એક અમારું ઘર જ્યારે થતું હતું ત્યારે અમે ચૂનામાં ચાલુ કર્યું હતું એક્સપેરિમેન્ટ કે ચૂનો, તો એ ચૂનાનું વેસ્ટ એમણે ઈંટોના ભૂક્કા સાથે બનાવીને એક ઈંટ આપી. તો એ ઈંટ અમને એક 9x9ની ઈંટ હતી અને 2 ઇંચ જાડી. તો અમે કીધું કે સારું, તો થોડા બનાવી લઈએ, કોર્ટયાર્ડમાં નાખી દઈએ. તો એ કોર્ટયાર્ડમાં નાખી દીધા. પછી 5-6 વર્ષ પછી જ્યારે ઓફિસ બનાવવાનું આવ્યું તો અમને થયું કે આ ઈંટ તો હવે અહીંયા બરાબર લાગે છે. તો એ ઈંટ કાઢી લેબમાં મોકલી અને ટેસ્ટ કરાયું, તો એનું સ્ટ્રેન્થ 120 આવ્યું. તો અમને કેયુરભાઈને કીધું કે કેયુરભાઈ, આ તો સ્ટ્રેન્થ સારી આવે છે, તો તમે આ બનાવી આપશો તો વી કેન સ્ટાર્ટ, એકચ્યુઅલી વીલ મેક ધીસ 4 ફ્લોર બિલ્ડિંગ આ ઈંટો ઉપર અને ચૂનામાં બનાવશું. તો એમણે બનાવી આપી. અને પહેલી વાર હતું એટલે જે ભૂક્કો હતો એ ભૂક્કો ચૂનામાં મિક્સ કરીને એમને બધી પ્રોસેસીસ છે. ઇઝ અ ગ્રેટ મટીરિયલ સાયન્ટિસ્ટ. સો એમણે બધી મિક્સ કરીને બનાવી અને એના ટોન્સ જે આવે અલગ અલગ, લાઇટર ટોન. જો કે હવે પછી ધ આઈડિયા વોઝ દેટ વોટ વી ડુ, ધ આઈડિયા વોઝ ઓલવેઝ ટુ પુશ ઇટ ટુ અ મેઇન સ્ટ્રીમ સ્કેલ. એન્ડ હું પોતાના માટે એક્સપેરિમેન્ટ કરું ને પોતાને ક્લેપ તાળી મારું ઇઝ વન થિંગ, બટ it should be available to everybody.
Correct.
And that is where Keyur Bhai's role comes in very, very strong. Correct. He has been able to take it to the mass market. So which means there are products now available off the shelf which have low carbon footprint and which are made out of recycled material and એવું બધું. So same thing we did with Rohtak or with Timbrel. We put it out in videos so that it's easy to take it forward.
Correct.
And Azad is now all over the country, Azad and his team, making these domes. It's so happy. So we get calls from different places. It's so happy to know that the idea that these are all going forward, because that is when the real purpose and the problem is solved. No, just not being one building or 2 buildings. How do we proliferate an idea? Is also one of our and that's where how we have kind of evolved as a practice. The idea is to look at something very deeply and see how it can be proliferated. And so that's kind of when the journey goes on.
So last question is very related to this. I think, sir, we are in a very similar position as Piero. Keyur Bhai hata pehla when he started, where we have come up with a wooden fenestration solution, a completely sustainable bari darwaja banayo chhi. Everything is also FSC certified, which means ke how much we cut, we regrow. We've started with that. The problem we are facing initially, it was ke it's very expensive. So we've managed to now lower the prices. It's similar to slimline aluminium windows now. પણ તોય સર there is acceptance isn't there. અમને જે પ્રોબ્લેમ થાય છે when we go to office saying that we've come up with a beautiful solution, can similarly it actually started with my father. wanting to do this and making it in wood. So we started it, we did this, but our problem is, what do you think we should do? How should we જેમ તમે માસ માર્કેટની વાત કરો છો, we want to also expand in that sense.
No, I remember Keur struggles earlier. Keur ને માસ માર્કેટ જવા માટે જ્યારે પ્રાઇસીસ વધારે હતા ત્યારે મુશ્કેલ પડી હતી. Finally, the problem is it's a chicken and the hen the egg and the chicken problem, in the sense that what comes first? Should he scale up so much કે ભાવ ઓછો થાય, so that he can, or should there be so much demand that he has to wait for the demand? When he waits for the demand, the price is higher. So
correct, exactly.
So that was the big challenge. So I think luckily in his case, he has gone through very difficult times. There were times when he really wanted to close it down also, as an industry. Then somehow it has got picked up, and he's now able to produce it at the same cost as brick. So
that is amazing.
Yeah, which I think is probably the challenge you are going to face.
Yes, it's a very difficult thing to.
It is a challenge, but it is possible now to some extent because કારીગરો નથી મળતા હવે. So even if people do want to use wood, they will have to be serviced by some kind of an industrial system, which you are actually planning to, or you're in.
Yeah.
Because and so they can come to you. So if I have a house and I just need to put some windows and doors, I don't have to go and search for a mistri, which is now becoming more and more difficult.
Yeah.
And so it's, in that sense, you may have to wait your time. You should, I would strongly suggest, start looking at some of the hardwoods, which people, because as an industry you may be able to get them to, if you start, let's say, using mango or neem or, as I said, sadar or these woods.
Correct.
Why only look at, I understand that the market wants, your kind of market probably wants a certain kind of finish, but you could always give also an option.
Oh, definitely. Sir.
And you never know. One has to hang in there, and maybe you talk to Keur as to what were his struggles.
I should.
And he will definitely have a few nuggets to share.
Definitely. Sir, but તમે અહીંયા જે સાદળ વાપર્યું છે, એમાં after all these years, do you find any weather effect કે તમારે કોઈ વાર મિસ્ત્રી બોલાવીને ઘસાવી પડ્યું હોય કે એવું કંઈ?
ફ્રેમમાં તો કોઈ ઇશ્યુ નથી આવતો.
ઓકે.
કેમ કે એ તો ફિક્સ છે દીવાર સાથે, અને એમાં પણ વરસાદના સિઝન, હ્યુમિડિટી સિઝનમાં જ્યારે દરવાજા બંધ કરવા બારી થોડુંક ટાઈટ થઈ જાય છે, એટલે એના માટે પછી 2 વર્ષ પછી અમે થોડા લૂઝ કરાવ્યા, બિકોઝ ધીઝ આર જસ્ટ ઓલ્ડ હાર્ડવુડ. So we have to be able to now understand it and maybe find some kind of scientific seasoning કે એનું porosity ઓછી થાય, એનું expansion ને contraction બંધ થાય, so એનું oiling કે એનું કોઈક treatment એવું થાય કે એ રીતના ના થાય, I guess. So that's the other kind of science that one needs to probably investigate.
Correct.
કે લાકડામાં એ તો છે, એ થવાનું, અને one has to accept and live with it. If one expects કે મારે એલ્યુમિનિયમ જેવું એફિશિયન્સી તમને લાકડામાં જોઈએ, પણ પાછું લાકડામાં બી જે 4-10 વસ્તુ એક્સ્ટ્રા છે એ ભૂલી જવાય છે ત્યારે. પછી એલ્યુમિનિયમ સાથે જ કમ્પેર થાય છે કે મને એલ્યુમિનિયમમાં તો જો આવું બંધ થઈ જાય છે ને આવું ક્યારેક વાંધો નથી આવતો.
Biggest problem.
હા, tolerance, as I said.
Tolerance.
It's that. It's definitely tolerance. And in the modern world, એ થોડું ઓછું છે.
100% ઓછું છે. અમે તો સર, because of this problem, we have to go as far as giving a solution saying that we provide 10 years of warranty. તમને કાંઈ પણ વાંધો હશે તો we will come to the site. આવતો નથી, આવશે તો આવશું. We have to give all of this.
Yeah, I can understand. No, I guess initially hand holding is good. કોન્ફિડન્સ એકવાર માર્કેટમાં આવશે તો ફરક તો પડશે જ, કેમ કે યુ આર બેસિકલી મેકિંગ wood, you're telling them that it is comparable to aluminum or whatever else. એટલે લિટરલી દે આર ગોઈંગ ટુ કમ્પેર કે મારી પાસે હવે એલ્યુમિનિયમનો પાછળ તો આજકાલ આ લોકો પાવડર કોટિંગ એવું કરી આપે છે કે જો લાકડા જેવું છે
દૂરથી.
સો અને એ તમને ક્લાયન્ટે કહેશે કે સાહેબ આવું તો મળે છે ને હવે.
કરેક્ટ.
સો I mean, I think at some level one has to over time it will work out. I think it is I hope it will work out, because it is an important area that somebody has to be at it.
Thank you.
Because it's all about, but you have to also be careful where you're sourcing your wood.
Yes.
Because somebody should not come back and point a finger at you.
Yeah.
कि साहब तुम्हें तो
Correct.
ત્યાંનો જંગલ સાફ કરી દીધો.
ના sir, we do take
I'm sure. I'm just saying that
yes,
it just be,
for sure.
you should probably get some kind of stamping or some kind of
Correct.
I don't know what is called, but if there is something like that exists,
definitely
authorizations of that kind, regulations.
Done, sir.
But I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for taking time and
thank you so much, sir.
This effort that you've made.
No, sir. Last question, sir.
Ajju છે?
please. No, 1 minute question, sir.
તમારું 1 minute question મારી પાસે 1 minute નો આન્સર હોવો જોઈએ.
ના સર, આ છે. So sir, I am sure અમારા viewers ને they would find it interesting. I myself want to volunteer for Soch. तो क्या जय सकी सर हमें, where do we go?
So Jai, when we started the office together way back in 94, and we practiced, we did a lot of projects together. She won a lot of awards. We did a lot of exhibition design, and we used to do some amazing interiors. Levi's had just entered the country then. Then she moved on, and then she wanted to teach some, so then kind of she wanted other explorations, and so she has basically gone on and started this organization Soch, which you're mentioning, which works in the villages of North Gujarat, which is basically north of Gandhinagar. અને 10-12 villages છે ત્યાં, schools અને બહેનો સાથે. Basically the idea is to be able to, કેમ કે ત્યાં આગળ skills એવી રીતના fine skills નહોતા, basically labor, farm labor, and basically cattle, taking care of cattle. So ઘણા બધા issues છે, એટલે there's a lot of areas that they work in now. It's, you will have to just talk to Soch, talk to Jai.
Okay.
And
on the can I contact on the website with the larger audience?
Yeah, you
also?
send a mail to her. Sure. And send a mail to her addressing her as saying that you're interested in connecting and seeing how you can work with them, and I'm sure they'll get back to you. And I'm happy to know that.